third theoretical approach and way of looking at the social world is symbolic interactionism. I just showed you a picture of a man and a woman. What's going on in that photo that I just showed you? What's the context? What's the meaning of the interaction? What are they doing to signify to each other perhaps interest or engagement? These are the questions that we deal with when we look at the micro level, when we look at particular people in particular contexts, in particular situations, and they're interacting with each other. They draw upon the larger culture to interpret the interactions and behaviors and the word choices, all of which have meaning. So this is an important set of questions, and notice how distinct these questions are from structural functionalism and the conflict approach. Both functionalism and the conflict approach were dealing with macro level social institutions, social structures, those sorts of things. Symbolic interactionism gets down into everyday life and looks at how people experience the world and how they come to understand it symbolically. Our species is a species that focuses on meaning, abstract meaning that is attached to material objects, to concepts, to values, to ideals. And so understanding how people actually engage the world every day is an important aspect of sociology as well. But again, a very fundamentally, a fundamentally different set of questions than other perspectives. In this picture that we were looking at, you might have seen flirting. Many times when I show this picture in class, people kind of think, well, you know, they're looking at each other's eyes, or it's not quite certain where the guy's looking, but he's smiling a bit. They're in each other's intimate spaces, and space has symbolic meaning. If you get too close to people in our culture, it can be considered an invasion of personal space. But perhaps when one is allowed into one's personal space as well, it might signal to the other person genuine interest, perhaps an intimacy or affection or some sort of endearment. And that might be what we're seeing constructed in this example. And I use the word constructed purposefully because symbolic interactionism is talking about the social construction of reality. Every day we're actually reproducing ways of being and ways of doing things and ways of understanding the world. So when we do this on the micro level, when we actually interact with other people, we're giving rise to regularized patterns, social structures in society. That's called structuration. With that said, so there's this kind of tension between the micro level, what we do on the everyday, and the fact that there are these larger social structures in which we operate that we also know provide opportunity and constraint in our lives. Again, with symbolic interactionism, we're focused primarily on those everyday interactions and what they mean and how people experience them, recognizing that there is a connection between what goes on the micro level and the macro level. Another important part of symbolic interactionism is simply to understand that meaning, the social construction of reality, how we understand ourselves, our identity, all of this will vary over time and place, depending upon who's present, if this is the 1970s versus the 1990s versus now we're in the 2010s. Cultures shift. The symbols attached to different statuses in society, mother, woman, man, older person, elderly person, middle-aged. The symbols that are attached to different statuses change over time. And then depending upon, of course, who's present in any one interaction, you might experience that interaction slightly differently. So the presence of a parent at a movie, for example, if you're seeing a movie with your parents and there's a romantic scene on the screen, you might experience that with or differently because of the presence of your parents, some awkwardness perhaps or some discomfort, because in our culture we generally try to divest sexuality from interaction with parents. But if you were seeing that same scene with a different set of people, the meaning and experience of that scene would be different, especially if it was someone like peers, or maybe even brothers or sisters or something like that. So the meaning of our interactions will vary over time and place, depending upon who is present and what the historical time period is that we're dealing with.